Summer means festivals, and this year there were loads. Glastonbury, the Isle of Wight, Tea in the Park, the Edinburgh Fringe, the Hay-on-Wye Pretension Fete, and of course the big current affairs street party in Rothbury. You remember that? Started with a guy called Raoul Moat.
Yes, when former doorman Raoul Moat, recently released from prison, shot his ex-girlfriend, killed her new boyfriend and then shot a policeman, he immediately became Britain's most wanted man.
The only people who wanted him more than the police were the nation's journalists.
Before long, police were on Moat's tail and had sealed off the village of Rothbury.
Sky News upped sticks and left London behind for a summer holiday on its outskirts.
Here, Kay Burley and co hung around the picturesque landscape, watching impressive graphics whoosh from one tranquil, uninteresting scene to another tranquil, uninteresting scene, viewed from a slightly different angle.
We just see a couple of anglers who don't look as though they've caught much, do they?
With not even any hot fish action to speak of, they had to content themselves by probing Moat's mental state, reading aloud from his letters like something from a particularly sociopathic edition of Points of View.
I'm a killer and a maniac, but I ain't no coward.
I'll say you ain't no coward. This whole letter is just devoid of wit.
Also of interest was the subject of Moat's physique, which the news speculated could have been the result of steroid abuse, which we were told could turn him into a kind of angry Superman.
If you are a hairy male, you would become more hairier. If you are an impatient male, you would probably become more impatient. If you're an angry male, then you may be a little bit more angrier.
Yeah, and if you're a wistful man, you'll get a bit more wistfulier. And if you're good at darts, you'll get a bit more dartsier.
It just amplifies whatever makes you a man.
Yeah, so it's basically a manplifier.
But despite the media's best efforts, the public didn't seem quite scared enough of this manplified bogeyman.
Which was a terrible shame because the news seemed to be banking on his box office appeal. Sky News were even using him to promote their new HD service.
The net is closing on Britain's most wanted man. Watch continuous coverage on Sky News.
Trouble is, seeing that, you could be forgiven for thinking that if you tuned in, you'd see car chases, cops running around, that sort of thing. Whereas instead, what you actually got was more like a curious cross between an episode of Wish You Were Here and Crime Watch, as Jeremy Thompson took us on a guided tour showcasing Rothbury's genteel charm while simultaneously asking its residents if this was all a bit scary.
A bit scary, all this?
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
A little bit? Oh, these two aren't scared at all unless they're grinning with terror. Quick, find someone else.
Well, from the bakers to the local butchers and Morris Adamson open for business today, everything looks back to normal, but I bet just below the surface things aren't, are they?
Yeah, I mean, things are still a little bit tense, you know.
A little bit? Well, I suppose he wouldn't be that worried. He's got a rack of knives on the wall. Anyway, so far we've had the butcher, the baker, so here's the candlestick farmer.
Mike, it must be a bit unnerving to have a gunman at loose around here in this remote area.
It is a little bit.
A little bit? So basically, so far, it's been a little bit scary, a little bit tense, and a little bit unnerving. And now here's a little bit of advice for Raoul Moat.
How easy is it for a man to hide out here?
He would hide as easy as anything. He could last for days out here. Nobody would ever know where he was.
Yes, the focus was now moving to Moat's ability to survive in the wild like the UK's most dangerous squirrel. And you could be forgiven for thinking the news was deliberately broadcasting a guide to evading police in the wild specifically for Moat to use.
Any feral maniacs watching would learn loads. You'd learn what to eat.
Eating raw food that's cold will affect his digestion.
Hot food.
His critical need is not food, it is water.
Ah, water.
On the informative GMTV, you could learn where to hide.
Now, Glenn, as regard to hiding from the police, there can be no better place than that. And there's lots of that around here.
So hide in that, whatever that is. Trees.
As well as forests and lots of derelict buildings, we have around here lots of caves.
Caves.
The deep cave system is actually very warm as well.
Deep caves.
If it gets cold and it gets wet, it will be warmer in a deeper cave.
Wet, warm, deep caves. Oh, I never knew survival could be so sexy.
But not as sexy as this hot Arsenal action. Yes, it's Call of Duty Hack Ops, as an anchor provides on-the-run viewers with a handy guide to what weapons the cops tote, presented by a journo palpably trying to stifle his arousal.
You can see the sights on there, the ammunition clips that go in to that part of it.
Go on, squirt off a few rounds, you know you want to.
Fortunately, the desk was there to mask his erection.
Drop it!
Meanwhile, Britain's fantastic newspapers were subjecting Raoul Moat's childhood snaps to sneering, knuckle-headed scrutiny, so a strikingly benign photo of young Moat was labelled "cute baby, but 2-month-old Moat clenches his fists."
Surprised they didn't show a photo of him breastfeeding and call him a tit-biting madman.
They also ran a front-page story claiming his mother had said he'd be better off dead.
And this kind of coverage hadn't gone unnoticed by a certain Raoul Moat.
He left a dictaphone message for police claiming to be upset by the coverage and threatening to kill a member of the public in exchange for each inaccurate report.
A bit like an armed extremist wing of the Press Complaints Commission.
As a result, the police requested a media blackout on stories relating to Moat's private life.
Which left the news with even less inane speculation to string out, because there was still no sign of the man himself.
Jeremy Thompson was reduced to hanging around in the undergrowth with a tracker, foraging for bullshit.
He didn't find Moat, but he did find some traces of Moat, or possibly litter. It was hard to say.
From here I can already see a recently discarded Argos carrier bag.
God, I bet that Argos bag would look amazing on Sky News HD.
Thankfully for everyone's sanity, things came to a head on a balmy Friday evening as Moat was spotted on the outskirts of Rothbury. Stiff, rule-following police immediately warned residents to stay in their homes, but the reporters ignored that in favour of creating an impromptu media carnival in the middle of the high street. The coverage soon showed people pouring out to see what was going on and occasionally wave at their relatives back home. Speaking of relatives, the BBC's John Sobel encouraged a woman visibly upset that her mum was in the sealed-off area to ring her live on air, even telling her how to operate the phone to do it.
Can you put your mum on the speakerphone?
That's a bit impersonal.
Good job she didn't have an iPhone. He'd asked for a go on Angry Birds next.
Can I have a quick word with her?
Can the guy speak to you?
Hi, how are you doing?
Moat, we learned, was lying down with a gun pointed at his head, but the news couldn't quite see that from where they were standing. Reporters tweeted that they were trying to get close but were prevented from doing so. Instead, they had to make do with broadcasting photos of some pissed-off-looking marksmen.
Till finally, they got what they'd come for.
Although rather than getting images, they captured audio of Moat's shotgun going off, which they inevitably played again and again and again, even cranking the volume because it was important we should hear it.
Listen to it again. We're going to really push these levels for you.
Now, I think they all pushed it on all sorts of levels.